Hey, what's up, everyone? So, I have a pretty cool topic for you this week because we are going to once again talk about what might be the hottest topic in Swift right now. So, how to adopt async await in your codebase. And we are going to see that, well, if your codebase is already built with a functional reactive framework, so like Combine or even RX Swift, it can be actually fairly easy for you to try out async await in your view controllers or in your views if you are using Swift UI. So let's take a look at the code behind me. So what I've implemented is, we could say, a very simple Swift UI view that relies on a view model that is powered by Combine. So if you take a look, you can see that I have a number formatter. So what this number formatter does is that it's going to spell out, well, the number that is given as its argument. So basically, if I put in 80, well, it's going to spell out 80, meaning it's going to return a string where 80 is spelled out with all the letters. Then, as you can see, I have a number publisher. So this is what is playing the role of my view model here. And what I do is that, so I create a timer that's going to publish an event every second. And then, as you can see, I map a first time on this publisher in order, well, to generate a random integer between 0 and 100. And then I map a second time on this same publisher. And this time, as you can see, I use my formatter in order, well, to format my number. So to spell it out this way, I have a string that can be displayed in my view. And speaking of my view, well, it is just below. So it is right here. And as you can see, in my view, there is an addState property, which is the number to display. As you can see, it's a string. And then, as you can see on the view, I use the modifier onReceive in order to listen to my publisher. And well, whenever there is a new number emitted by the publisher, I update my addState property, which is going to in turn refresh the view and, well, display the new spelled out number on the screen. So this is your typical and minimal SwiftUI code that uses Combine. And now let's say that, well, I want to try to use async await in my content view, but of course I don't want to change anything in my model code because, well, I don't want to start and do a full rewrite of my app. I just want to try out this async await pattern and see how it works. Well, as it turns out, this is pretty easy to do because in Combine, there is actually a bridge that is already implemented for you and is going to allow you, well, to use a Combine publisher with the async await syntax. So let's see how this bridge is going to work. So first, if I want to use async await and no longer Combine directly, so I'm going to remove the onReceive modifier and instead I'm going to use the modifier that you are meant to use, that you are supposed to use whenever you want to use async await in a SwiftUI view, which is the task modifier. And then inside this modifier, we are going to use a specific property of our number publisher. So let me get it for you. So here is my number publisher, and we're going to use the new values property. And so this property, as you can see, it returns an async publisher, and it's basically a publisher that we can interact with using the async await syntax. So how exactly are we going to interact with this values property? Well, we are going to use the typical syntax that we use whenever we want to iterate over an async sequence. So we're going to use the for await in syntax. So let me write this new syntax. So it's going to look like this. So for await new number in number publisher dot values. So this way here, as you can see, I am creating a suspend point that is going to wait until there is a new number emitted by the publisher. And then inside the body of my for loop, well, I just have to use this new number. And so I'm going to do the exact same thing that I was doing before, which is, well, updating my addState property. So as you can see, this syntax is actually very similar to, for instance, using the sync method on a publisher, except that this time we are no longer using closures, but we are using this new syntax that was invented, that was introduced for async await, which is the for await in syntax. And as you can see now in my SwiftUI view, well, I am no longer, we could say, directly using Combine. Instead, I am using the new async await syntaxes and patterns. And that's all thanks to this values property that was added to Combine Publisher. But if you are a seasoned iOS developer, well, you probably know that whenever you want to use a new API, you'd better check what is the minimum OS version to actually use this API in your project. So let's just jump to definition and check this out. And as you can see, yeah, this property was introduced with iOS 15. So even though Async Await has been backported to iOS 13, whenever you want to use the APIs that were introduced in Combine in Foundation, you still need to use iOS 15. But the nice thing is that if your project still has to support either iOS 13 or 14, well, you can actually still use this syntax because John Sundell has published on GitHub a very nice library that is going to implement this values property as well an open source Swift package that you can include inside your project. So of course, I've put the link in the description and you can check it out. And finally, before we end, one last piece of information. So in this video, I've been using the example of a project that uses Combine, but it's very possible that you made the choice to use Eric Swift in your project. And if that's the case, well, you will be happy to know that in the latest release of Eric Swift, there is actually a very similar property that allows you to use an Eric Swift observable with Async Await. And once again, the link to this release is also in the description. So thank you all for watching this video. Actually, if you have already been using this new API in your app, well, please let me know in the comment how it went. Did you find any weird edge cases, that kind of thing? I would be super curious to know about it. Thanks a lot for watching the video and see you next time.